Hello, welcome to the Champions Q panel. My name is Quest. I work for Inven Global as a full-time writer, covering the LCK and other Korean esports news for Inven Global. Today, I am going to be the moderator for the Champions Q panel, where I get to talk to three experts here on our panel. And I'm actually gonna starting with Olleh. Can you guys give us an introduction of who you are, what you do?
Hi, my name is Olleh. I play for Golden Guardians as a support, and I play most game in Champion Queue.
Nice.
Haha.
I guess Lourlo, you wanna?
Yeah, I'm Lourlo. I played pro for about 6 years on different teams like Team Liquid, Golden Guardians, Dignitas, and even Echo Fox. And currently, I've just been streaming Champions Queue. So yeah.
Yeah, and I'm Cubby. I'm one of the cover casters that covers Academy. So I apologize in advance. I've been blessed with a cold a week before we start,
Oh
which
no.
honestly is not bad. I get it out of the way now, right?
Mm,
But yeah, so the casters that Riot has, we have permission to stream Champs Queue. So oftentimes I stream it, or I just kind of talk with a lot of the amateur and Academy scene about how that's been going. So yeah.
okay. Obviously, I kind of want to start like for icebreakers, right? I want to start. I talk a little bit about MSI because obviously pro play and like Champions Queue is just all about like solo queue being better in NA, or that's the system that's intended, right? So, a bit about MSI and I guess NA's run at MSI. So, again, feel free to jump in on how you guys thought that EG played at MSI this year.
Better than my expectation.
Better than expectations.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that EG taking a game off T1 was kind of like a fluke, or because even Impact in one of his interviews, post-game interviews, he said that they shouldn't have won the game. So
T1 definitely threw, but I mean, yeah, they threw the game and EG picked it up and were able to beat them. So I don't think that's a fluke at all. But hey, I mean, EG going international, not dropping a game to any minor region teams, and taking a game off T1 is better than most NA representatives that we've had in the past. Maybe not so much for MSI, but I mean, thinking of all the world's teams as well. That's a pretty good run for EG.
Yeah, at
okay,
least for me, I think like with Jojo and Danny, them having zero international experience too. Like you can say that for some other players in the tournament, but I think it is, I guess, impressive from my perspective that they did play pretty well. Like Jojo kept his confidence most of the tournament, even with like him like trash talking and losing games when
Mm,
he did do that. So yeah, I don't know. I was impressed. I think they obviously could have played better, but for the most part, I was impressed.
okay. Um, Now how kind of transitioning into summer split and then like eventually Worlds. Do you think and it's gonna kind of get better at this point heading into Worlds, or is it just kind of like, doesn't really mean anything?
Fingers crossed, right?
Yeah.
That's what we always hope for. But I don't know. I think it's curious. I think the one really good sign from EG is the fact that like they played their game and they kind of stuck to their guns. And I think that thinking historically, a lot of times we've sent teams over where they've tried to change their play style to fit the international mold, and it hasn't worked out as well. So my hope is that what EG did in terms of how they built the roster and how they went international, like more people follow suit. Like it's okay to take risks on younger players who you feel like you can really mold into the players that are going to help your team be successful. And then stick to your guns. Like they were JoJo was playing Rise and just going for stupid roams like for all of LCS, and that's what won in the tournament. So I'm kind of hoping that teams see that and be like, all right, it's okay if we play more of our game and our play style, whether that's in NA or representing NA internationally.
Okay. Anyone else want to add to the insight? No.
No, not really about that.
Okay.
Yeah, all right. I mean,
hmm
All right. So let's move on to Champions Queue. Champions Queue is something that's exclusive in NA. Does can Ole or Lulu? Can one of you guys explain how it works to the viewers for the of this panel?
Sam, you go for it.
I got it. Okay, so basically, I'll try to sum it up. I've been explaining a lot because people in my stream do ask me. But
Mhm.
so basically, it is a low ping server. It's based on the tournament realm, which the pro players do scrim on a daily basis. So it's based on that, and it's a server based in LA. So there's 10 ping for all the pro players and any amateur players, or like for me that I'm in California, they're based in. And yeah, it's a server that is just consisted of all the best players, like all the top LCS players, academy players, all the amateur players. There's some ex-LCS players, ex-pro players, and about like 300, 200-ish players, I would say total. And there is a queue system, which originally was supposed to be on the client, but it is now through a Discord bot. So there's like a Discord server that all the players sign up for through the Discord bot, and that's how the games are formed um, through that. And then on top of that, there's comms. So like when you join as like the 5v5, right? You have comms for each team, and then there's also a prize pool for each individual split that's broken into like 3 different, I guess, brackets for spring and summer.
Okay. So how obviously it had a lot of flaws. There were expectations were really high when obviously it was first announced, and the hype was still kind of there in the early days, and then everyone just kind of stopped playing. Why is that?
I mean, there
Um,
there are
yeah,
like
go for it.
so many reasons. It's like some people complain like enemy team has like 5 LCS, we have 2 LCS with some random dudes. Some people say it's like I don't want to play with this guy. He made like shitty shackles, blah blah blah. Or like, oh, I don't like to have a communication. I want to play like a solo queue. It's like there are so many reasons that people can complain about. So it's really hard to like say something like because this people don't play. Like there are so many reasons. Like whenever I ask other players, they have all different reasons. So it's really hard to choose one reason why you don't play.
Okay. So I guess from your personal opinions, or from personal perspectives, how is it flawed? Like, what's the some of the biggest complaints that you have about Champions Queue?
I think a
Oh,
big
I
one was
oh.
I think a big one was the MMR system, which actually got changed in this most recent update for it, which I think is like, to me, what's going to bring a lot of people playing it consistently, because prior there was the MMR system where it was just like, well, there was an MMR system. It was just a +10, -5. So when you win a game, you get +10. When you lose a game, you lost 5 points. And so like actual matchmaking was just really hard in that regard. You could get like 4 TL players versus like 4 amateur players off just pure RNG, right?
Mhm.
And now say like the top end of like champions like Core JJ, or like I don't know, like who won last time, like Dokla I think was high up, and like Sven are like top 1, 2, and 3. If you do beat them with a low MMR team, you'll actually get rewarded and you won't lose as much. And I think that is like a huge thing that differentiates this compared to last split. And I think the only other thing to me that would be a benefit to Champions Queue, regard like besides the MMR system, would be like something like duo queue, which I think they were talking about adding for like other bot laners and mid jungles
Yeah.
and just duos in general. But I think that's a smaller note right now. I think this MMR change should make it like a no-brainer for me to play Champions Queue over any solo queue, because there's a prize pool added, there's low ping for the most part if you're based in California, which most of the players are that are really trying to compete. There's you're playing with the best players that want to like compete basically. They're like some any solo queue players are not really playing to go pro or get anywhere with league. They're just kind of playing for fun, and there's a lot of players that do that, which is nothing wrong with it, but it's just how it is. And this is like a just a server made for competitors. And if you don't want to compete, you don't want to like improve yourself to the best, then yeah, to me it's like a no-brainer. Like you should participate, right?
I also think that, I mean, Champs Queue, like by the end of the split, like having that to be shut down and divvying up the last set of the prize pool they had was a bummer. But I still think it had a lot of wins. I mean, it was still the most successful in-house server we ever had in NA. Um, I think that like some of the issues that happened were just compounding, right? So like one of the issues that people ran into at the back half was that not enough people were queuing up. So then a lot of people started queuing Phil, and some people like didn't want to play with the Phil games, like in those. For some players, like that's like compounding issues. And I think that still, like for the first stab, it did have some wins. Like I remember watching the first 2 weeks of games, and game quality was way up compared to solo queue still. There was a lot of excitement with the pros in Champs queue. I think it just ended up like running out, and as the season came to an end, less people started queuing up, more problems arose, and that's kind of how we ended up where we're at. So I'm really hoping that for summer, the MMR system, that was definitely the biggest ask from players, just like being in the server and talking with people. So I'm
Yeah,
hoping that really helps. Yeah.
I also think with the MMR system, like what I like pictured in my head, like for the run for Worlds, I feel like more players are gonna be a bit more competitive in summer than in spring in general too, just because Worlds is, I would say, just more important than like MSI in general. Um, so yeah, I expect more people to queue up and really try hard in summer comparatively to spring. And I think a lot of teams are still in Korea, and the season hasn't even started yet. And just last night I was playing, and there was like six games going, I think, at the peak. And even with like a bunch of technical difficulties from like the Discord bot from the first night, there was still a lot of like just players showing up. So I'm excited to see if it keeps going like throughout the next couple months.
Yeah. So now, how does invitations to the to Champions Queue actually work? Because I've heard complaints about like some high elo NA solo queue, how like high elo players not being invited, whereas some that shouldn't have been invited was invited. Like so, like how do they? Do you guys know how they work? And maybe like you can shed some light on how it can be improved as
So
well.
I know that like for the pro level, if you are LCS team, academy team, or Latin America team, you automatically get an invite as a player. And then for the amateur side that Lourlo mentioned earlier, so there's a OQ that they run. There's a split, and 16 teams qualify for like the main event. So if you're one of those 16 teams, you get an invite. So that's something where like amateur players compete to keep that from one split to another. Um, and then in terms of the bonus invites, I think those are honestly just one-offs. Like if you're a coach that was an ex-player or like an ex-pro, like Lourlo, you get an invite. Um, if I know there are some players that they're looking for exceptions that are like trying to go pro and may not be on an amateur team. Like I know one player who is an import, so can't compete in the amateur OQs, but is good enough to go pro and has that aspiration. So they're trying to get him like an exception. I think the rest just kind of depends.
So do you think that there should be more one-off like invites, like apart from all the pro players and academy players that get invited? Do you think they should scout more high-low players into Champions Queue?
I think it's tricky with something like that personally. It's really hard to say because I feel like the people that are trying to compete are gonna either go through academy or go through amateur for the most part. I think there'll definitely be some one-offs, but at the same time, I think something like this is always quantity. I mean, always
Mm,
quality over quantity. I think once you start adding a bunch of just one-offs, and it's just gonna turn into more of like the solo queue-esque type of vibe, and I think you want to keep it as, I guess, disciplined and competitive as possible. Um, but I think there could be in the future just better systems to maybe find one or more players that are just not wanting to participate in amateur or academy that are still trying to compete and get them into Champions Queue. But I feel like it's not that many people because I feel like the top end ladder players are probably already in it or like know someone within the scene.
okay. Oleg, do you have anything to add?
I think they did it well. Nothing to say more.
Okay. So you're pretty happy with how it's run right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, I got you. So Ole, I know you were very vocal about how the grind culture is because the grind culture isn't. I want to say it isn't there in NA compared to like Korea or the LPL or whatever, right? Um,
Uh-huh.
does that like and also like in terms of pro play, like LCK LPL teams have like triple blocks of scrims, whereas LCS teams and if my information is correct, LCS teams have a lot less. Does the lack of players in Champions Queue, like, is there correlations between that kind of culture?
Oh, I mean, like, I
Yeah.
I was actually I was talking with Danny when he just like came to Korea for MSI, and then he actually like played like really many games of solo queue, and then he got challenger like earlier than anyone else. And then he said like he really loved to play Korean solo queue because like people actually play well and they're mechanically great, and then like that really make him want to play more games. So at the same time, I'm thinking like maybe there's a it's like people don't have that passion to play much in NA, or maybe the server just sucks. Maybe because it's like when like NA or EU, they just like fly to Korea and they just like spam the game because they they just like to play Korea solo queue compared to their server. So I'm kind of like I'm kind of two way. First way is like maybe people are just lazy, but same time maybe our server is just sucks. So maybe that's why people don't play. So like and before I was also I was thinking about maybe they just don't grind, but at the same time because 2 years ago I was always ranked 10 in Korea in any solo queue, but I kind of lost my motivation to play and they just like play like whatever I kind of through the game because I kind of felt like I'm learning nothing while just playing like spamming the game. So yeah, I think it's like it can be kind of like it's kind of connected. It's like you grind hard, but one day you realize even though you grind, it doesn't help your performance, so you stop grinding, and then that goes to other people, and then it's just like more and more. But what I what I wanted when I just like kind of show up on the Reddit when I like write down stuff on my stream is like it's like if everyone just I think I imagine like if 50 LCS players actually after the scrim they all spam the champion queue, the game of quality will be insane. It's like like 3TL, 300T, like 4C9 one game. And like every game like in CQ or LCS player play, then the quality will be insane. But like what I saw is like only few SS players like looking for game, and then some academy players. And then combine them, it's like only 10 to 20 people wanna play champion queue like like spring. So I kind of felt hopeless. Why am I even doing this? So I think I just wish something gonna change for summer. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Do you guys have anything else to add to that?
I think in general with it all comes down to just participation, like in my eyes at least. I think like what Olleh was saying, if more people are playing, then like the quality is just gonna feel like if the top level players are playing, then the quality will feel better. But I do have to say, like I know some players at the top level don't want to play, like just from talking to some of them, just in particular, just because they don't want to show certain picks, so, like certain communications, certain things they're practicing. And I understand that too. I don't think the top level players need to be playing like the full 5 6 hour block, but like for someone like me, I think just like setting the example and participating every now and then for like a few games a night, I think would go a long way to keeping the server like sustainable. um and that goes for just like basically everyone in every bracket from like LCS Academy to amateur, because there's over 300 players in the Champions League server, and it doesn't have to be everyone participating at every single waking moment it's open, but to keep like 5+ games going, to like a few people playing every night is something that I think is more so than doable than not. So
Cubby, you have anything else to add?
Not too much there. Obviously, I think the more games we have going, the better.
Mhm.
But yeah, I totally get like needing to take breaks too as pros. But
Right.
yeah.
Okay. So is do you guys think maybe like so obviously all three of you want here on the panel, you guys want more people to play Champions Queue games, right? Is the 400K incentive not enough? Maybe feels like, because it feels like, or just based on what I've observed of Champions Queue over this the past split, right? It's like people kind of try hard in the beginning, and then players who don't like are not near top 10 just kind of give up playing solo or Champions Queue.
How about 4 million?
I wish.
Olleh knows he's
4
a grinder.
million.
He wants it. Yeah.
Like literally everyone gonna play. 4 million. Put that in.
So is it not enough? Do you guys think, or?
I mean, we've never seen a prize like this for solo queue before in the first
Right.
place. I think the other prizes like Riot used to give out were like jackets or trophies to challenger players or backpacks. Yeah, I can see Lourlo smiling. Those are some of the fun old days in past seasons.
Dude, it's just like, I don't know. I came into
The challenger
scene.
jackets were cool.
Did I see? I came into the scene in 2016 on TL, right? And it was before franchising, and at least from my perspective, like the salaries were never like this crazy within like the current ecosystem for esports. And to see something like there was nothing for like solo queue either back then. Like to see something like this and people coming up not truly taking advantage of it is like mind blowing to me. Like if I was 17 again and like one of the younger players trying to come up, it would be like I would be doing anything to play with like any top player at every situation. So like to me, it's like absolutely crazy because it's like a I don't know once in a lifetime opportunity kind of thing. You're getting a chance to win a lot of money. You're also getting a chance to play with all the LCS and academy players and all the top players in the region. Like why wouldn't you play, right? And I think a lot of the amateur players are playing. At the same time, it goes to say for like all the academy players as well. Like there's a good opportunity to improve and actually get like I guess more disciplined practice rather than just like playing solo queue or doing 1v1s outside of scrims because there are other forms of practice other than just like playing solo queue, playing champions queue. There are other ways. Like when I was playing pro last year on the academy, I was doing a ton of 1v1s after scrims. Like I would finish my scrim block and I would do like 2 to 3 hours of 1v1s versus with other top laners like Fake God and a few other top laners like Darshan as well. And yeah, it just depends. Like there's are different ways to practice, but like for me, I'm just like, wow, people are just not taking this opportunity really seriously and just at least giving it the time it deserves because there's a lot of money on the table. It's low paying. There's just so many opportunities that could be had with this, and this is just the start from like in my perspective. So yeah, I just hope it keeps growing. Honestly, like I'll keep advocating for it as long as it possibly can. So.
I'm curious what Cubby thinks of this because he's more of a like he doesn't play champions, he spectates it as a So, is there not enough incentives for players?
I think there's a lot of incentive. Like, I mean, I think what Laura like monetary. There's never been a prize like this, but also, I mean, if you want this to be your job and you want to be elite at it, like, what better way can you practice than going in the champs queue? Um, I'm always one that like advocated for drills and 1v1s. I think that's really good practice actually. And I wish that like more drills were normalized to work on certain skills in this game. But I personally, I mean, I think that Riot has put a lot of effort and support in the champs queue. I mean, there was even like the Champs Queue prize is bigger than the prize money for amateur events playing as a team. Now, I know like Riot obviously puts a lot more money and support in the amateur, just given operational side. But I mean, you have so much more opportunity to make money and succeed as a LCS or academy player in Champs Queue than even players just trying to make it into the shoes that you're in, like you're in, on grinding out there. Obviously, amateur players get access to the Champs Queue too, but we haven't seen any amateur players get very close to the top of the ladder, which it's probably a good thing. I think the one player that did get kind of close got picked up instantly. So it's also something where, I mean, I know from talking with coaches and helping players like, kind of learn how to find teams in this offseason at the amateur side of things. Like coaches now say, like, we want you to get in the champs queue and we want to see how well you do in champs queue. Like that is a huge part and priority for them in terms of like how they actually scout players now because they get their point of view, their comms, everything. So I this is the new kind of center and hub. So like I'm with Lourlo in the fact there's no excuse to really go hard. So yeah.
Okay. So I mean, again, with a lot of the flaws and for Split 2, they've made improvements to it. Like you guys talked about the MMR system being a little better. What else needs to change?
I don't know. MMR only MMR?
Only MMR?
Is that it?
MMR could realistically like fix the entire thing, because like it the way they used to do it is like you just queue blind, and so yeah, you could get like against all of TL. There were like always funny screenshots being shared of like 4 TL players versus like the amateur team, right?
Right.
Whereas now they're still prioritizing like finding a game, I believe, but once you do find a game, they balance the team through MMR, and you can see the MMR in the server now if you're a player and you see the game. I think everyone started at 2K, and then they're just going to go from there. So
Yeah, I think. Yeah, honestly, I think on top of like, well, how I view Champ Q as well. So when it was dying, it was the end of spring, and a lot of players do just want breaks, and that was kind of like the era where it was dying. Ideally, I would hope like a few more games would be played when me and Olleh were just the only ones queuing top, and that was kind of like a failure in that regard. But I think Champions Queue as a whole, we'll see. Like I think it'll have a lot more success in summer than the end of like spring era that happened, and I don't want to like just sit here and talk about like why Champions Queue won't work, because I think it can work and I think it will work. I think the only way to like actually like, bring hope to it and like see the light of day with it is actually believing it from like just like from like a, I guess, media social perspective, or just a whole perspective in general. I think if there's like constant just like media backlash towards like Champions Queue of like why it's bad or why people aren't playing, then people are just not going to queue up in general. But like for me, I think there's a lot of good that can come from Champions Queue in summer in general. I think the MMR change is a huge change leading into it, because like Cubby said, there was a lot of like flaws in terms of just the teams being imbalanced and like just not balance, whatever, like too many stacked players on X lobby. But yeah, and like I noted before as well, like with Worlds coming up, I think more players will participate and there will be more hype. But at the same time, it's all going to be like I guess time frame type of thing. Like when summer is ending for Champions, or like for LCS and whatnot, and for the seasons, I think we'll definitely see a drop off of Champions queue just out of nature. And yeah, we'll see how sustainable it can be. But I think there's nothing to be said, but these are the steps in the right direction. I think the other things that can be added are something like duo queue, because it will just give more incentives for, I guess, pros to queue up and like build synergies or try different things in comp. But yeah, we'll also have to wait and see, honestly. But yeah,
Okay.
that's about it.
Do you think that like the concept of Champions Queue, do you think having different servers of NAs, like solo queue, like NA West or NA East or whatever, right? Do you think that if hypothetically, if those servers were up and running and the servers were created, do you think there would be there would still be a lot of interest in Champions Queue, or do you think players would be more opted to play like those other servers of solo queue?
it'd still be Champs Queue unless you're like in Toronto and the ping is just horrendous.
Mhm.
Because there are definitely some amateur players and teams where they can't play because they're just too far east. And in terms of 2 servers, like, I mean, obviously that has pluses and minuses, but I mean, the NA server, if you look at, EU, LP, or China server, Korea's server, we have less people that play ranked, and the average rank is lower. So I think splitting it up would not be great.
Okay. Anyone else want to share their thoughts as well?
Yeah, I agree with Cubby on that. I think split was not the best idea.
Same.
Okay. Now, in reverse, though, would the concept of Champions Queue work on different regions, like maybe US, in Korea? When I actually interviewed Korea a while ago, he said that the concept of Champions Queue wouldn't really work in Korea, just because, again, with the average rank being higher, the lower, the ping being lower and whatnot. Like he just said it wouldn't work in Korea, so I want to know what your guys' thoughts are.
Yeah, I thought about it a lot actually. I think the biggest thing for Korea, in general, there's more players, there's more competitive players, I'd say, and there's more people like trying to get to the top in Korea. And I think the biggest thing for me that still sticks is the ping. I think with the people really trying to compete in like on West Coast server, having the chance to play on low ping outside of like the scrim environment is really huge, and the Korean players and LPL players get to have that consistently. The only other region that I could see it actually working in is maybe EU, because the ping is kind of flippy-floppy on like where you're actually located. But at the same time, I think since the overall region is just smaller in terms of like how many players are trying to be competitive in NA, I think things like communication really helps add discipline and just overall structure to like people like adding higher quality level of games, because I feel like when you have a ton of people just in Korea that are playing consistently at the top of the ladder and really trying to get to like um the top, basically there's so many other layers within Korean esports, right? There's like 4 teams for like most of the top orgs. Like they have like a C and D team, and there's like way more layers to all these esports orgs. While in NA, they're like the amateur like scene is still forming and trying to like make ground with that. So I think all this is still in the early stages of growing the ecosystem for North America. But like I said, I think it's not really needed in Korea because they're kind of, I guess, more mature in that regard, and how much they've grown over there in terms of like the player base and like actual discipline to compete. And I think something like this with Champions Queue is just only gonna increase the discipline for NA and hopefully bring more new players to actually be able to compete on like a, I guess, larger scale.
Olleh, your thoughts on whether like how Champions Queue would, if like would it work in other regions?
I think the reason why I love Champion Queue is the ping, but
Mhm.
I think in Korea, in China, I don't think people like, because it's already great ping in Korea, so people
Right.
not worry about ping anymore. And also other thing is like it's about the language. I think in Korea, if there's a champion queue, in Korea we have to say yo. It's like
Mhm.
formal way, so it's kind of be like It's like you have to talk to some random people with the formal way in Korean.
Mhm.
But I feel really easier to say stuff for like in NA, like English doesn't have that, so I just like I can have easier like conversation with like random people in NA. But I think in Korea, people really will have hard time to speak to each other because the language. And another thing is Korea solo queue is already great, but I think actually the price is like actually some people will care. I believe it's like you just like practice hard, and then I remember Damongia when they got rank 1 to 3, they gave them some bonus, right? But they got it from the team. But what if Riot actually giving the Korean solo queue top 3 players like the champion queue money? Like the server will be on fire. Like literally everyone gonna spam the game. But people already spam the game. But yeah, I think Korea. I think as Sam say, I think EU will love to have champion queue for sure because the ping stuff. But Korean, I think it's already great, so I don't think people actually like ask Riot to do it.
I mean, people have been complaining about like the state of Korean solo queue currently, right? Because of how people are saying that they're all mechanics, no macro.
Uh huh.
So I wonder what your thoughts are in that regard, just to kind of branch off from that topic.
I mean, but it's like actually many people don't actually get about the how Korean solo queue work, but like I said it earlier on my stream, it's like the Korean solo queue is great after you get challenger. Like under challenger, like even in challenger, people are still bad. So it's like only like when you go up like 1K more than when you have all like all challenger players, that quality of game is actually great. But it's like usually some streamers go to Korea, they play with the masters, especially the diamond, the Hellgate in Korea solo queue. They're gonna complain for sure because I even failed BO5 3 times in Diamond 1. It's really unplayable at some point. So I think what I want to say is like the Korea solo queue is great because the top of the players. It's not like the whole server is great. It's just like the we have more greater players. So it's like, let's say if NA has 20 like insane top players, Korea might have like 40 to 60. It's not, but it's like we like whole server is not like insane as people expect. So yeah, I think people should understand. It's like just top players are great. It's not like everyone.
Okay. At this time, I want to take some questions from our Discord server. The first question is: do you think success in Champions Cube will have direct success relative to on stage?
Not direct, but it can't hurt. And I know that, like, again, from talking with a lot of the coaches and GMs that are in the space, like, Champ Q rank matters, and it's kind of different, like, for each org. So I think it's pretty safe to say, like, the org that prioritizes Champs Q the most is probably EG. Especially looking at like the roster decisions they made for their amateur team this split, which I know is kind of reaching for most League fans. But the players they picked up did really well in Champs Q. One specifically, Yukino, who really made a splash in Champs Q. So I think that if you want to become a pro and be on the path to pro, um, making it in the Champs Queue and playing well in Champs Queue is probably the thing that you can do to help yourself the most right now.
Okay.
I agree with that. It's like
So-
I think I can take one example. I think it's like when I played Champion Q, that time I play against Breezy, the CRG Academy player. Like before I didn't know him, but I always match him. I play against him every game, and then I start to like notice him, and then somehow I met him in LCS Studio when they play against the EG for the last game for CRG. We just hug. Holy shit! Nice to meet you. So it's like I think it'd be like you can get attention from like SS players or some streamers easily if you actually like play most of games in Champion Queue with them. And I think even at same time the coach or head coach or scouters gonna watch it anyway. So I think it'd be a really good chance for amateur players to get a chance.
Yeah, I actually know the one thing like org side that orgs want is to have like a Champs Queue repository. So like have every game saved on a website where you can boot up the spectate and sync up comms and get POVs if there are any. Like building like something in the back end like that, so then teams just can scroll through, and if they like want to scout a specific player, they can just go through all their Champs Queue games and stuff like that. So I know that's something like that's a huge ask, obviously on Riot side, but in like some orgs are starting to like kind of poke and prod around that. So yeah, that's something where again like they care a ton about Champs Queue. So yeah.
Okay. The next question that we have on our Q&A channel is that I think this is more specifically for Cubby. Champ Q streams have been very popular, obviously, right? From I guess from all of you, but especially from Cubby, from all your perspectives, how do you think of it as a marketing tool?
I mean, for me, like as a color caster, like, I mean, me streaming solo queue isn't that entertaining, right? I did hit D1 in the break that I had, so I was happy about that. But no, I mean, it's like for me, it's great because like I get to talk a lot about like some of the players that people may not know about because you see a lot of amateur players. They actually make up a pretty good chunk of the people that are queuing up every day. And it's good for me to just like kind of assert myself as someone who knows what I'm talking about when I can just go over like, hey, this play was really good. We can look back and see why, or hey, this play wasn't, like, why was this bad? And I think it's just interesting. Like, I mean, I think this is like a different discussion, but I think it's fascinating. Like in esports, like it'd be like watching a professional tennis players like hit balls, like, or like watching a pro golfer like hit the range. Like that is literally what we get to do with Champs Q. Like we get to watch like Lourlo, Olleh, everyone else who's super talented on the ladder, like play firsthand. And we even get to hear comms, like you get to hear everything, which is an unreal amount of exposure. Like if you think about it, like from other traditional sports, like you don't get to watch, the two NBA teams in the finals like have practice. Um, so I think it's pretty wild that like we get that much exposure. Um, and overall, like for me, it's fun because I mentioned earlier, like the game quality is higher. So when the game quality is higher, it's more fun to kind of like dig deep, and people are not afraid to make plays, which I love. Like, during Champs League games, like a team gets like pretty far ahead, you might see them like into bit, like or limit test, and like I'm all for it, like because that is the place to do it. So I think overall, it ends up being fun to spectate. And I think it's, I mean, obviously an opportunity for me as one of the Riot casters, but it's a huge opportunity for a lot of these amateur players again to boot up their stream and have like that is a really high like level of content and a good way for you to be discovered if you're one of the players that are up and coming.
Okay. Anyone else have anything to add to the insight?
No, I agree with basically everything. I think Champs Q is definitely the future of like just streaming in general for a league, and also just like people coming up in the scene and having a chance to make something themselves. I think I'm all for it. I hope it keeps growing. I think the changes that were made to it um, recently for like the MMR system is just like a huge step in the right direction. Yeah, I I think the team and like the council and the people behind Champions Q making the decision, I think they'll keep thinking of ideas to grow it. And yeah, I just hope this is the direction that keeps getting pushed forward instead of just like people playing NA solo queue and just being like stuck in that like I guess limbo, because I think this is just the best option, like hands down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I want to say something. It's like when I play just solo queue, I felt like sometimes it's like I playing with some robot. It's like it's just playing by myself, and it's just like I play with the 9 bots. Sometimes I felt like that, but when I play champion queue, it's like because I talk with like 4 players, and then I feel like I'm not isolated, so I feel kind of less lonely. And then yeah, I feel like I'm actually talking with human beings, and then it actually feel way better whenever I play
Yeah,
champion
actually,
queue.
yeah, actually, I think to add to that too, Ole, I think the big thing
Yeah.
that made me like less like solo queue less too was just dual queue removal. I think people have like different opinions of it. For like for me though, it kind of just made League so isolated. Like to just add on that, like
Uh,
once dual queue is removed, like you can't just play with one of your teammates. Like because
It's
before you just
fun.
like you dual queue with your jungler, you dual queue with your mid lane, you get to talk to them, like talk
Yeah,
about
it's
life,
fun.
talk about the game. It's just more fun and more enjoyable. It's just
yeah.
like when that got removed, it was like what am I even doing here? I'm just playing the game constantly. That's like the big thing with Champions Queue. Like people just love human interaction, right? It's
Uh
like
huh.
regardless of just the game itself, people just love people. It's just how it is. Like
That
people love talking to people and creating conversation, having fun, and yeah, it's just a big thing missing from League. Like
I
solo queue.
love too with like Chamsky, like finding the dopamine players, as I like to call them. Like when like a good play happens, like they're just like there to like hype everyone up. Like I think Philip, the top
Yeah.
laner for FlyQuest Academy,
Mhm.
like he's like hearing comms like, "Oh shit, let's go!" and like the
Yeah.
player, like everyone's like hyping each other up. Like that's pretty fun, you know. Like,
Mhm.
like is that good for comms? No, who cares? It's a good time. So yeah.
okay. So to kind of close this panel off, I want to ask you guys, what extra steps can be taken to incentivize players to more actively take part in Champions Queue?
Mm.
Hmm. I think the foundation's already there. I think it's just a timing thing. I think we'll get to see what happens with summer, but I think the MMR change is huge, in my eyes at least. I think the foundation of like the prize pool being there, maybe in the future the queuing up system is actually on the TR server. Maybe that could happen in the future and not on the Discord bot, which would make people queue up more. Um, but yeah, I think the comms being there, the low ping being there for like the West Coast players, the prize pool being there, the chance to play with the top players in the region being there. I think everything is there. I think the step just to queue up and play is the last thing. So, and I think
Um,
yeah.
no, go wrap up.
No,
Sorry.
no, you can go, you can go. I got it.
I think something that's also great, like Uh, yes, Champs Q like did kind of fizzle out towards the end of last split. We already kind of talked about that, but it's a big motivator for like these amateur OQs. Like the last 2 OQ signups where, you know, if you qualify, you get champs queue. They've been up like 50 to 70%. We set the record for the most teams that signed up for the last OQ. There were 51 teams that showed up for a 32 team OQ, which ends in like a 16 team main event. I mean, that's like that sort of participation. It's encouraging more people to like try and make it there because they realize how important it is. And yeah, I think that, you know, pros and you guys, like it's a great spot. I mean, the only other server that has this is the Chinese super server at the moment. So I think it's definitely like a big privilege to these players. It does fix a big problem, which, as Olleh mentioned, the biggest thing is ping, right? Like
Right.
certain champs, you just can't practice on 60 ping. It's not fun. Playing Jace on 60 ping is terrible. So yeah, I think that like it's a big privilege for these guys, and I just hope that, you know, with summer, like what Lourlo was saying, with hopefully, you know, people being more motivated because Worlds and NA is a pretty huge motivation for a lot of these orgs and
Right.
players. Hopefully, we just get to see even more participation with the MOR system. So yeah.
Olleh,
I think it's like I want like more the top tier pro players play more, because what I heard last time was like, oh, even though the A player didn't play a single game of champion queue, he's winning LCS. I think that stuff kind of make champion queue a bit like less and less like people want to play. But it's like, let's say Jojo Pyun spammed the champion queue and he won LCS. Then people will be like, oh, actually that really helpful for performance, and then everyone just jump into it. But let's say Jojo Pyun stop playing champion queue, don't even play a single game, and then he win LCS, and then he said like, oh, champion queue doesn't matter. Then really people not gonna play champion queue, I feel like. So I wish it's like top tier pro players play more champion queue, for just like for the reason I hope, because more and more we play against and with each other, I think our region will be better. So that's what I want.
yeah. Actually, one final question to close off the panel. This one's directed towards Lourlo. A to C in Champions Queue when?
I'm not trying to get banned, bro. I gotta keep it going. No. Dude, ADC, I don't know if any of you guys watched, but it was really fun. I had a really good time playing the ADC stuff, but no, I probably won't be playing in Champs U. I did play Lilia in Champs U last night, though. That champ's broken.
Lily's
Also,
dirty,
Olaf's
yeah.
broken. Dude, I'm actually, I went to bed and like, oh my god, why didn't I play Lilia all night yesterday? It was so broken. I'm so excited to play that champ today. Please don't ban it. I'm just selling myself out here, but that champ's so broken. It's crazy. Like, her laning is so crazy. But yeah, probably no A to Z to top that off.
Okay. All right. On that note, I want to thank everyone on the panel for coming on today and spending a chunk of your time with us. For the viewers out there, please stay tuned. We still have a lot of panels coming, and thanks for tuning in. And once again, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.